Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm gonna be testing this GeForce RTX 4070 Super. Yeah, it's big and heavy, this one. This time at 4K resolution. This is the Palit Jetstream OC version of the card, and it's quite a bit different from the Founders Edition. It has this triple fan cooler, but like the Founders Edition, this one doesn't have any RGB lighting, so we're losing a few FPS there. Moving on. The differences don't stop there. This card comes overclocked out of the box, and they've raised the TDP from 220 watts, that's what the Founders Edition consumes, to 245 watts, which means this achieves higher clock speeds as well as slightly higher FPS in games. The other specs are still the same, of course. It's still a 4070 Super, so it has those 7168 CUDA cores, a very good improvement over the normal 4070, the same 12GB of GDDR6X VRAM, which were enough for 1440p in yesterday's video, but I'm not sure about 4K. We'll find out, of course. Finally, I'm pairing it with a Ryzen 9 7950X3D with half of its cores disabled, 32GB of DDR5 6000MHz RAM CL30 in dual channel, and a 2TB SSD for all of the games tested today. Let's play them games, shall we? And just like yesterday, let's start with Cyberpunk 2077 with a Phantom Liberty DLC. This time we're playing, of course, at 4K resolution using the Ultra settings. I'm gonna disable the resolution scaling right here, which comes on by default, as well as these options, and everything else is set to Ultra. Oh, this is really intensive. Look at that, guys. 30s. Okay, it's definitely gonna dip into the 20s. By the way, take a look at the power utilization. It's actually going over the 245 watts specified, just by a little bit, so that's okay. And the clock speed is definitely quite a bit higher than the Founders Edition yesterday, about like 80 to 100 megahertz higher or so. But unfortunately, it's not enough to put us above 30 FPS all of the time, so these settings are a bit Now, we could utilize like DLSS performance, for example, and this will definitely give us way more FPS. Yep, there we go, 70s. Okay, I thought it was gonna give us a little bit lower FPS than this, so let's just run around for a little bit like this, guys. Wow. Now, performance DLSS is actually the auto option for 4K resolution, so it looks pretty good even on my 42-inch monitor that I'm utilizing right now. I can tell it's a little bit less sharp than it was before, but honestly, there are games that at native resolution look a little bit softer than this with performance DLSS, so it works really well here in Cyberpunk 2077 at 4K res. And if you have a smaller monitor like a 32-inch or a 28-inch monitor at 4K, performance DLSS will look even better than this. Now, what about frame generation? I'm gonna turn that on now and keep this on performance right there. And there we go. Yeah, it touches 100 FPS at times. It's slightly softer again because of frame generation on top of DLSS performance, but it's getting really nice results, guys. And at around 100 FPS, the input lag isn't really that noticeable. You can definitely notice it still, but it doesn't bother me in the slightest. Even while shooting people and aiming in a single-player title, it will be all right with around 100 FPS average. Well, lastly, let's try it a little bit with ray tracing right here. This is the ray tracing ultra preset with DLSS ray reconstruction, frame generation, performance DLSS on top, and I'm just gonna disable all of these again. And now look at that VRAM usage, guys, going over, oh boy, yeah, it's actually touching 12 gigabytes of VRAM utilization, so it might actually start stuttering. These little spikes that we're seeing right now, they could possibly be caused by the VRAM being maxed out. It already swapped some things into the RAM for sure. At 4K resolution with ray tracing and frame generation, you can actually max out that frame buffer, guys, and get a few little stutters here and there. However, most of the time it's actually really good and smooth, as you can see by the frame time graph, but since frame generation is enabled and needed to achieve these FPS, it's not really that great in terms of input lag, with around 70 to 80 FPS most of the time. Let me just disable that and see how it does. Oh boy, it just crashed. Okay, I just want to see it without frame generation now and see like the VRAM usage and stuff. Here we have it, guys. It dips below 60 FPS. It's actually constantly below 60 FPS, but the VRAM is not maxed out anymore. It's at 11 gigabytes of usage at the moment, just fluctuating a little bit, going down into like the 10 gigabyte mark at times, like 10.8 or whatever. So yeah, apparently there are no VRAM issues or stuttering issues if you use these settings with frame generation disabled. We still got DLSS on. I mean, this is... I really like to test all of these things out, guys. I need to make a separate video testing a ton of more settings, and I will. Oh my god. VRAM is maxed out with these settings, but this is native with ray tracing, so yeah, there we go. Now we got the finals at 4K using DLAA, so it's native res, high settings preset instead of epic that I tested yesterday at 1440p, and with the ray tracing disabled. Here we have it, guys, 80-something FPS. If you remember yesterday at 1440p with max out settings, oh boy, wait, we need to be careful. Guys, please help me. Oh, hello. Stop, there we go, we got a kill. There's a big guy over there. We got him. It's the extreme boy. But as I was saying in yesterday's video, at 1440p, max settings with ray tracing enabled, native resolution as well. We got 90 to 120 frames per second most of the time. So it was much smoother than this for sure. But this is still pretty decent. It's not a super high refresh rate experience. Far from it, actually. But I would still have fun for sure. Come on, there we go. And I am still having fun, definitely. So far we got 85 FPS average, 1% lows in the 60s, but I didn't really see it drop that far. But what about, like, quality DLSS? This looks basically like native res at 4K, and look at that now, guys. We're getting 130s. That's actually a huge improvement. Yep, it's on quality. I thought it was on performance for a second. Damn! So you don't even need to lower the settings from high to, like, low settings, for example, to have a competitive high refresh rate experience at 4K, guys. DLSS quality will do it. Oh no, the game is about to end. Come on, no. So close. Now it's Red Dead Redemption 2 at 4K using the same ultra settings preset as yesterday's video. It's not completely maxed out, guys. I just turned this slider all the way to the right. And look at that. No need for DLSS. It's still above 60 frames per second, at least right here. We're gonna go into a more intensive area in just a little bit, but I'm confident. These results are pretty good, even if it dips into the 50s here and there. Oh no, it seems like Jack is not here this time around, my friends. Oh, damn it. I really wanted to see that boy. We're here, my friends. Strawberry. This is a really intensive town in the game. It's dropping slightly from 70 FPS. I mean, we've seen lower already. Maybe with these settings, it's just not that much more intensive. Or maybe the 4070 Super is just a really, really great card that can get 60 plus all over the time, no matter what in this game. I was expecting like lower 60s here. Oh boy! What the heck? Roach! Are you okay, buddy? Where is he? What did I do? Come on! I think he's dead. Oh no, he's fine. He's completely fine. I, on the other hand, am not completely fine, but it's okay. Now, since we haven't seen Jack, can we at least kill Bob? We're in Saint Denis, guys. By the way, this very big city. As you can see, it's definitely less intensive than where we've been previously. And Bob is not there, unfortunately. He's usually here playing the trumpet with copyrighted music, and we don't like it, obviously, so we must kill him. But no, not today. Alright, I'm just gonna go to the swamp area. That's usually very intensive as well. Here we have it. This is it. And it's not dropping. It's still above 70 frames per second all of the time. So this is gonna be a breathtaking experience with very smooth frame rates for a single-player game. Next is Call of Duty Warzone 3 at 4K resolution using Fidelity FX cast to sharpen up the image and 100% resolution scale. Everything else is set to the extreme settings preset. Look at that, touching 100 FPS looking at the map. Now, one of the most intensive things that you can do in this game is actually shoot water. Because water is extremely intensive for some reason, even though it kind of looks like crap. Look at all of that noise. Even at 4K, it's noticeable. But yeah, the RTX 4070, the normal version, dropped from 60 FPS while shooting the water right here. This one is getting like 10 more frames per second than the 4070 did, so it's going to be above 60 frames per second the entire time. No need to utilize any upscalers here. It's a really decent improvement, actually. Now, there are a couple of little frame time spikes here and there. That's completely normal in this game. It's very hit or miss. In some of the matches, it will be buttery smooth. In other ones, you'll have a little bit of variation there. It's not really that noticeable, though, so it's fine. Alright, over here, 80 still, 97. I think the 4070 averaged around like 80, 85 FPS. So we're getting a good 10 FPS more than that card around this area right here, at least. Oh boy. Oh, I don't have much ammo. I just noticed it. We gotta go with a freaking Glock, maybe. There he is. Come on. Oh, Glock, save me. There we go. Thank you very much, Glock. Damn, that was close. Oh, come on. Oh, the recoil is actually pretty big in this gun. Ah! Well, that's enough anyways. I've been walking around for a long time already, and we got 100 FPS average. Really good. We are now recording the Avatar Frontiers of... I don't know why. Sorry. I was trying to go for a French accent. Alright, we're at 4K resolution using high settings preset this time around. No DLSS is being utilized. It's at ultra quality, so that means that it's just using like DLAA, you know? And it is getting close to 60 frames per second. That's pretty impressive considering how good this game looks, aside from the water. That looks like crap. Like, what the heck, Ubisoft? Come on. So if you want native 4K in this game, it's going to be possible, but it's not 60 plus FPS all of the time. Actually, it's below 60 FPS more often than it is above it or at 60. So I wouldn't really play like this, guys. You know, the best way to play this game is definitely with DLSS, because it looks great in this title. Let's use quality here. And with quality DLSS, look at that. We're up into the 70s, 60 plus basically. Way better experience like this, and it looks basically the same aside from the water looking even worse at this point. And the clouds also shimmer a little bit with the DLSS on and FSR as well. They still haven't fixed that. Come on. Now, we still haven't seen it in a very intensive area. We're approaching this camp part of the game, which is really intensive. Look at this, by the way. Like, pretty much all of it looks insanely good. Textures as well. Look at the little plants here. What the hell are they doing? So interesting. It's nice to explore this. Over here, it's getting 60s. This is where I thought it was gonna drop a little bit further than this. So 60 plus is definitely achievable, guys. This is actually performing better than 1440p ultra settings at this point. Now, lastly, I want to check it out with FSR 3 with frame generation enabled, ultra quality, so it's just native resolution with frame generation on top, and the sharpening from FSR 3 at the same time. And look at that. Now we're up into the 80s, so it's even better, although not that much better than DLSS quality. And the visual fidelity is still really good here with frame generation from AMD. But the thing is, I still prefer DLSS quality in this case because the input lag is about the same as like 50 to 60 frames per second with the smoothness of 80 frames per second. And previously with DLSS quality in this case, we were getting input lags of like 70 frames per second. So that's a much better experience here. I would not utilize frame generation in this title at 4K. Now it's the very well optimized Forza Horizon 5 at 4K using 2x MSAA and the maximum settings. Just like yesterday's video at 1440p, I'm not touching those settings, and as you can see, it is still going to be a really good experience. I'm not sure if it will drop into the like 50s or so in the city area. We'll see, of course, when we get there, but this looks amazing, guys, and it's performing really smoothly. Let me go to this desert area with a lot of vegetation around us, dropping into the 80s at times. Not too much, though. It's pretty much the same thing. 70s now. All right. Finally, we arrived at the city, and it's dropping. Actually, no, it's not even dropping. I was gonna say it's dropping into the 80s, but no, we've been getting 80s and 90s most of the time. Inside of here, it drops into the low 80s, and into the mid-70s, getting out of the tunnel, which is the most intensive thing here in this game. So, no problems. You can max out this game absolutely fine at 4K. Now, it's Spider-Man Remastered at 4K resolution using DLAA, so it's native res, and the very high, actually, the highest settings over here without ray tracing. Oh, look at that, guys! 90s! Touching 100 FPS at times, probably. Yep, there we go. Nice! So, of course, this is without ray tracing enabled, because if you do enable RT, it's another story. You will need to utilize some DLSS. This is one of the most intensive areas in the game because of the vegetation. Whenever you have ray tracing enabled, it's not, but without RT, this is it. And it's dipping down into the 60s sometimes. I saw like 69 over there for a second, but that's just perfect, guys. If you get 69 minimums, it's the best experience ever. I want to see if it's possible to play with like DLSS quality, frame generation at the same time, and ray tracing on very high, because the VRAM might not be enough. Here we have it, getting very similar FPS to what we saw at native res, guys. Wow, and it's looking very similar at the same time. A little bit worse, of course, because of frame generation around these vegetation areas and trees and so on. You can see a little bit of weirdness and softness there, but it's minor. You know what? This is pretty cool. I think it already swapped some things that should have been on VRAM into the RAM, but it didn't really stutter when it did so, and it feels smooth. I mean, you can play with ray tracing, after all. Now, in Counter-Strike 2, we're playing at 4K using the low settings with high textures and 16 times anisotropic filtering. And I first tried it on very high. I was getting around like 200, 240 FPS sometimes here in the deathmatch. But the problem is, when I got to a casual match and tested a little bit of a smoke, you know, it dropped to 80 frames per second, and that's definitely not something that you want in a game like this. So I dropped it down to what is essentially low settings, and now we should be able to achieve like 150 plus 100% of the time, even with smokes on screen, and we're getting like 300 plus average here. Damn it, you bastard. Now we need to concentrate, my friends. We just need a lot of concentration right here, and then we can actually finish first place, just like yesterday. Come on. Oh, yeah. Hello? Okay. Do not stay like that. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Seems like with 320 FPS on average, you could actually have one of those 240 hertz 4K monitors, the newer ones, you know, OLED and stuff, and get a really smooth experience in games like Counter-Strike with a 4070 Super. Although, if you have the money for one of those monitors, you probably have the money to buy like a 4080 or 4090, which will be much better, of course, at 4K. Nice. Okay, come on. Oh, why can't you get me the win? Please, just die a million times from now. I want that win. Come on. See that? Well, good enough for me. Okay, final test in CS2. It's the smoke, incendiary, and grenade test. So smoke effects, as you can see, dropping into the 130s, a little bit lower than I expected. Throwing a grenade on top of the smoke actually lowers it even further, as you can see. 116. And fire effects drops it down into the 1-teens as well. Turns out that with those 1% lows, even on low settings, this is not fit for competitive play. Although, you can definitely play competitive. I mean, I played with 60 hertz up until Supreme Master First Class rank, so it's alright. Now it's GTA 5 at 4K, no MSAA this time around, but still using the maximum settings, aside from post effects, which introduces bloom and motion blur and it looks ugly. And here we're using maximum settings as well under the advanced graphics. Start counting our FPS, and look at that, guys. Finally, we do not need to lock our FPS, because when we hit 188 frames per second in this game, it actually starts stuttering like crazy. But here at 4K, you don't need to worry about any of that. It's not gonna reach the engine limit, which is nice. Now, what worries me a little bit is the FPS that we're gonna get in Jack's Hill. Since we're getting like 120s right here, I'm expecting down into like the 60s. Whoa. It's all good. That was totally on purpose. Look at that, guys. We know how to do tricks here in this channel. Great stuff. All right, here we go. Let's see those FPS dropping because of the grass. It's super intensive in this game, and it's not really dropping by all that much. It's actually dropping into the same values as 1440p yesterday, with 4 times MSAA. Hello, Jack. How you going, buddy? I killed you yesterday. Actually, it was Jacqueline, but today I'm not gonna do that, my friend. Everything is okay. You can stop running now. Now, let's see if we can kill Bob this time around. He wasn't here yesterday in his usual place, and he's not here again. What is happening? I don't understand. Oh, there he is. There he is. He's invisible or something. Like, goodbye, Bob. Oh, boy. Okay, so sorry, Rex. He's fine. He's fine, right? Yes. Anyways, if you fancy some 4K GTA 5, it's definitely gonna work. To be expected, it's a very old title at this point. Now it's Hogwarts Legacy at 4K using DLSS quality, so it's rendering the game at 1440p and then upscaling it, but it actually looks better than native resolution because TAA implementation in this game is just bad. Ultra settings preset with no ray tracing. And look at this, we're starting in Hogsmeade, which is more CPU intensive than anything else. We're seeing a little bit of fluctuation in the frame time graph. That's completely normal in Hogwarts Legacy, unfortunately. It's because of the Unreal Engine. But yeah, it's holding up quite well. GPU usage isn't even maxing out most of the time. Okay, now let's go to one of the most GPU intensive areas in this game. Okay, damn it. That always happens, dude. It's right here, guys. Little stutter there. It drops down into like the low 80s. That's extremely good for a single-player game like this, guys, right? I mean, no complaints whatsoever, aside from the inconsistent frame time graph, but hey, what can you do? It's just the game itself. Now we're in the Dark Forest part of the game, which is definitely less intensive than the other part. It's getting like 100 FPS at times. Yep. Really nice experience here in Hogwarts Legacy. And now we have Stutter Night at 4K, DirectX 12 using Epic settings preset, but I disabled Nanite Virtualized Geometry, which also disables Lumen, so we're not running ray tracing here. Now it would have been pretty bad with ray tracing here at 4K res, because even at 1440p in yesterday's video, it actually dropped from 60 FPS. We needed to use some DLSS to run ray tracing. But here, just disable that nanite setting and it's gonna achieve around like 90 frames per second, which is what I'm seeing right here at least. And that's indeed pretty reasonable of an experience, especially considering that the game still looks great even with no RT effects. Now, the thing with Fortnite is I would probably still enable some DLSS, even though we are getting more than playable FPS here. And that's because this game looks extremely good with it. Hello there. How are you going? I don't think he has a gun. Oh my god. Oh my god. What? This is just a bot. The burst firing, dude. So if you want that native resolution experience, this is it. It gets around 100 FPS average with 61% lows. Even inside of a bush, it doesn't really drop too much, as you can see, which is nice. But let's enable some DLSS on quality. And now, look at that. Instead of getting 80s inside of bushes, we're getting 130s. And outside of bushes, we're still getting... God damn it, Stutter Night. We're still getting pretty much the same results, 130 FPS-ish. So that's going to be extremely smooth, of course. On a 120Hz or 144Hz monitor, it will make a difference. And what the heck? Can you stop stuttering, Stutter Night? God damn it. Seriously, this game has the ability of driving people crazy. Just because of the stutters, you know? Oh my gosh. Oh, hello! Oh, okay. Oh, no! Well, that's been it for Stutter Night. It's definitely very smooth and playable when it's not stuttery. Next is Alan Wake 2, and this is actually surprisingly playable, although it's dropping from 60 FPS, so not amazing. But it's 4K resolution with DLSS quality, which makes the game render at 1440p, and then it upscales it, and the high settings preset, but I did disable ray tracing this time around. Yesterday I tested it with RT. At 1440p native, it was getting like 23 FPS, because it's path tracing, you know, it's really intensive. Yeah, this is playable. playable, but I would like to see 60 plus FPS here. It's not really needed for a single player story-driven title like this one. It's like a slower paced game anyways. And it is possible to get 60-ish FPS, especially in areas like the city, which are a little bit less intensive than this. But I think the way to play this game is probably with DLSS and frame generation on top with the RTX 4070 Super here. So this bumps our FPS up into the 70s. As you can see, it adds a bit of input lag. Once again, you can definitely notice that. But maybe if you're playing with a controller, it's going to be all right. I mean, even with a mouse and keyboard, you can easily get used to these amounts of input lag in a game like this. And yes, once again, I know this is not native resolution, but in this game, it really does look like native resolution. I can see a little bit of shimmering like on the branches, the very tiny ones, but that's about it. Everything else about the image looks fantastic still, even with FG and DLSS quality on top. Now it's the game of the year, Baldur's Gate 3 at 4K using the Ultra settings preset with TAA. I was going to utilize it with DLAA, but it dropped like 6 FPS and we are in the 70s, so we need those extra FPS. Good thing is, TAA at 4K, it doesn't really matter too much, it looks alright. Down here you can see it dip into the 60s, frame time graph is not really perfect, but you know, for a game like this is definitely a playable experience. I would say you only need like 30 FPS. Now this is at native resolution as well. Obviously if you use some DLSS, things will be even better. And where am I going? Actually, I didn't want to go this way. And it's also in the city part of the game, which is very, very intensive compared to other areas. Let's see if the guys over here are still throwing those spells around. Come on. Do it. Yes, there we go. All right, do something else, please. There we go. There we go. All right, we're starting to see the FPS dropping here with these spells. Yeah, 50s. Like high 50s, not really that big of an issue. Let me see with the DLSS enabled now. So I'm gonna set it to quality, which basically looks like native resolution in this game, at 4K at least. And now instead of getting 60s, we're in the 90s. Look at that. So now there is no worries, guys. It's never gonna drop in from 60 FPS anywhere in the map. It's getting 100 over here. It's actually getting CPU bound slightly at times. This is super CPU intensive as well. Time for the awarded, the biggest joke of the... the most innovative gameplay of the year. I'm talking about Starfield. Yeah, you couldn't say. 4K resolution, ultra settings preset with no motion blur. Let's try it without DLSS first and then with it enabled for a little bit. Here we have it, guys. Oh my gosh. No. Ugh. It's 40 FPS. I mean, it's not great. I believe it will even drop into the 30s at this point. Obviously, outside of this huge city, which is very intensive, you will get like 60 plus FPS in some of the planets. But over here, this is what you can expect. At least it's like 40 plus all of the time. Not completely awful, but I mean, come on. Bethesda, where is the optimization? Mr. Todd, you should not need a 4090 to play this properly. Well, to be fair, you don't need a 4090 to play it properly. All you need is DLSS, set it to performance. I'm not even using frame generation here, and there we go. It's getting 60 plus FPS at basically 1080p resolution, which is crap. Like, come on, how does this look better than something like Hogwarts Legacy or like Spider-Man Remastered? You know, those are much more impressive games, technically speaking, in my opinion, and graphically speaking as well. Yet this one just... Let's enable frame generation and see how it does. Here we go, frame generation is on at the moment. We're getting, okay, closer to 100 FPS. But things are starting to look pretty... Nyeh. I mean, look at the laser, for example. We see a lot of pixelation right there because of frame generation. Well, you can play the slow field, my friends, if you really want to. Now it's Apex Legends, look at that. While dropping, we're getting 130s and 140s. We're at 4K, of course, using max settings aside from this one right here, which stutters a little bit if you have it on maximum. And yeah, this seems like it's gonna be a smooth experience. However, whenever I throw my ultimate with a lot of explosions and smoke around, it will probably drop quite a bit, okay? 120s right here, 130s with this smoke, so no problems there, but there's a couple of guys right there. Ooh, he has good shields. No, we're not gonna go in this direction then. Okay, finally got my ultimate ready. We're getting like 100 in the teens around here, so this is a good area to throw it. And let's see what kind of FPS we get with a couple of smokes at the same time. And explosions. 3080 Ti, if I remember correctly, dropped into like the 60s. This is dropping into the 80s. There could be some variation, of course. But yeah, expect a high refresh rate experience most of the time, aside from a lot of things exploding in front of you. I want a piece of the action. People, where did you go? Oh, there we go. There he is. That's my boy. Oh, that's another boy. Yeah. Well, The Last of Us Part 1's not actually that terrible. It's getting 50s. Yeah, I don't like 50s. But we're playing at native 4K resolution using the high settings preset. It's not ultra settings preset. And on ultra at 1440p it got 60 plus yesterday. But it's definitely not too bad. I'm actually going to use DLSS quality. That should work pretty well. Yeah, there we go. That's much better. Instead of getting 50s, we're now up into the mid-70s with very, very minimal differences to the graphics quality at 4K. So in this one, I would definitely utilize DLSS if you're playing on a 4K monitor. Here we go, getting 100 FPS inside. Pretty decent. Now dropping into the 70s. It's going to be very intensive here. 60s, 70s still. Not dropping from 60. We had a little bit of a stutter though, so keep that in mind. But I mean, it was probably just a one-off. And over here, it's usually pretty intensive as well, and it's only getting 71. That's pretty good. All right. This is basically 4K visuals once again. Here we go outside finally, and this is where it drops the most usually as soon as I turn the camera around. Here we go, 69, 68. That's a nice number. All right, guys. So you can expect 60 plus 100% of the time, I guess. This is working pretty well. Alright guys, it's conclusion time, and like yesterday, I'll still have Assassin's Creed Mirage as well as Rainbow Six Siege running their benchmark runs, this time at 4K, obviously. And well, the worst for the 4070 Super at 4K is probably compromise. A little bit. Well, this GPU is definitely capable of achieving a good gameplay experience at 4K resolution in pretty much all of the titles that we tested here today, as long as you are okay with disabling ray tracing, playing with DLSS, or dropping like a preset or two on the graphics settings. In my opinion, at $600, I am okay with those compromises for that crispy 4K resolution, and that's why in this video I was a bit more positive than, for example, in my 4070 Ti video at 4K resolution. 4070 Ti was a more expensive GPU, of course, at $800, and it still had the 12GB of VRAM, and we still had to make pretty much the same compromises as we had in this one, because this is only like 5 to 10% slower than the Ti. Now, probably the biggest issue with this GPU at 4K is the 12GB of VRAM. It's not really that big of a problem today in today's games, but there were a couple of instances where we already saw the VRAM maxing out or getting very close to it. I worry that in a year or two, 12 gigs might not be enough, and you will need to start dropping the texture quality, which is very important for visual fidelity, you know, and that defeats the whole purpose of 4K. You want crispy, good visuals with great textures, and then yeah, dropping the texture quality is not great. Still, for now, 12GB are still okay for 4K, especially if you keep that DLSS enabled. And it's just going to render a low resolution and upscale to 4K and still looking very, very good. So that's it. While I'd probably go for something a little bit stronger with more VRAM for 4K gaming, the 4070 Super does not disappoint in my opinion. I think it still did a pretty good job overall, and you can definitely enjoy enjoy some 4K gaming on it. That's been it for this one. Thank you very much for watching this video, and leave a comment down below telling me whether or not you would go with a 12GB GPU for 4K gaming and what you thought of the experience here with this GPU at 4K. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. I used my 3080 Ti as my main GPU for about a year at 4K with DLSS in many of the games, and I really enjoyed it, and this is basically the same thing. Of course, games got way more intensive now, and they use more VRAM, but it's still capable, as you saw. So do let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one very soon. As always, love you all. Bye-bye.